All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, coming into this current NBA season, I did a video on Mr. Joel Embiid, and I stated in the video that I gave him a dark horse chance to win this season's MVP award, and I provided certain metrics that I believed that if he were able to reach them, would certainly put his name amongst the other MVP candidates and give him a realistic opportunity to win. Well, thus far this season, he pretty much has been able to reach all of those metrics, but the reason why he is not considered a realistic MVP candidate is because you have more than one player in the NBA that is currently having a historic level season. James Harden is having an historic level season, as is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Well, Joel Embiid has basically stated what I won't say that I agree with him about, but soon he might be this player, and that being the most unstoppable player in the NBA. Right now, he's really starting to come into his own. And I think that next year, I'm not quite sure if I would call him the favorite to win next season's MVP, but he's going to be right there. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
But I want to stick with Embiid here, guys. 37-point, 22-rebound night. We mentioned it earlier. He put the NBA on notice. Listen to this hot take by Joel.
Yeah, Embiid, he brings everything to the table. He's a great offensive player and a great defensive player. If he can keep this up for the next 8-9 years, he'll definitely go down as one of the greatest centers of all time.
By Joel.
First of all, I'm glad we got the win. Second of all, this is one of the best defensive players in the league. And third of all, I've been hearing that these guys can't guard me better than anybody else, so I just have to come out and show that I'm the most unstoppable player in the league.
Well, that's good that the brother created challenges for himself and he was able to meet those challenges, but he still has a long way to go when it comes to going against the Celtics. There were a series of occurrences that had to transpire just to give Philadelphia the opportunity to win that game at home.
Gotta believe in yourself before anyone else will. Max, who's the most unstoppable player in the association?
The most unstoppable player in the NBA right now is James Harden. It just is. James Harden is the most unstoppable player in the league. And I'm not even sure if there's a close second. I think that if we're going to talk about who's the player who can get 30 the easiest, I would say KD. But if we're talking about the player most likely to get 60 and not have to run off picks to get it, it'd probably be James Harden.
To answer that, I just got to say something. There are some guys in sports you just love so much, right? Like, oh my God, that's the dude. You know.
Well, Embiid does have a certain charm.
You know how I feel about Westbrook, the way he gives the effort every night, but Embiid. I mean, how good is it to have a guy like this in the league? He's not only talking about it, he is about it. He's about it. He plays defense like that, brings it strong in the paint, plus does like everything you want the guy to do. And then
the next step is to improve his post-up game now.
And then after the game says, these guys can't guard me. And don't forget, he got the better of the Greek Freak very recently. And
no, not really. They went to war, and the Milwaukee Bucks were undermanned. Philadelphia was able to win a very hotly contested match in Milwaukee. I give them credit for it. But no, Embiid did not outplay the Greek Freak. The Greek Freak had 52 points.
And shut him down on defense. One-on-one on defense. I love me some Joel Embiid.
What type of shutdown defense gives up 52 points? Of course, people are going to say that Joel did not guard the Greek Freak for the whole game, but still, he scored 52 points. Joel's a great defensive player. He's going to get certain stops and pivotal moments against the Greek Freak, but the Greek Freak is this season's MVP. I'm not quite sure if he's going to get it because I think that Harden is going to try to push the envelope. And if the Greek Freak does not have a couple of 50-point performances over these last 10 games or so, I think that Harden's going to be able to win it.
Embiid. And Stephen A., on rest, he is definitely in the conversation. You rest him, and in the playoffs, no second to back-to-back, he's in the conversation. But the most unstoppable player in the league doesn't even need rest, Stephen A. He played offensively. He played the second of back-to-back last night on the road. 3 of 4 games, three games in 4 nights on the road. And James Harden still gave him 57 points. There is no stopping him.
Yeah, in this NBA, where the players are so spread out, the lane is pretty much wide open, and Harden has that step back three, or he can go to the bucket and finish at the rim. He's the most unstoppable player in the league.
James Harden has become the most unstoppable offensive player in basketball, and he has played extremely underrated defense in the last year and a half or so.
His defense has been better. He deserves credit for that. I mean, it couldn't get much worse.
Including...
For a couple seasons, James Harden had Carmelo Anthony looking like Dennis Rodman.
Including oftentimes this year and in last year's playoffs. I'll say this. The reason I get on Harden in the playoffs, you got to can those shots, is because, I hate to bring it up, the only guy who can stop him is him, but that seems to be the case. Under normal circumstances, 3 games in 4 nights, all on the road, second of back-to-back, 57 points? Why can't you do it in the playoffs? He's got to do it in the playoffs because the idea, well, they're going to focus the defense on him. They do that in the regular season, and there's nothing they can do. The man is unstoppable.
Right, but there's a big difference between defensive game plans in the playoffs as opposed to the regular season. And when we're talking about the troubles or the struggles that James Harden has had in the playoffs, we're talking about against 2 teams, the 2 smartest teams in the NBA, that being the Golden State Warriors and the San Antonio Spurs. So once again, when we speak about his struggles against teams in the playoffs, we're really talking about his struggles against 2 teams.
Unstoppable.
James Harden is unstoppable. James Harden, the reigning league MVP, is about to win a second consecutive MVP.
I suspect that he will. Even though I think that Giannis is having a better season overall from start to finish, offense and defense considered, I think that the level of spectacle that Harden is providing on offense is going to allow him to win over some of the MVP voters.
He is that special, but he's not the most unstoppable player in the NBA. That would happen to be Kevin Durant.
I partially agree with that. I mean, if we're talking about the player that you could count on to give you 30 points on 13 of 23 from the field, yeah, then it's KD. But if we're talking about, I need you to get me 60, that's James Harden.
Kevin Durant, just imagine for one second. First of all, Kevin Durant shoots 8 percentage points better than James Harden from the field. James Harden is shooting under 44%. Kevin Durant is at 51%. Kevin Durant shoots the same from 3-point range. Kevin Durant averages nearly 7 less shots per game.
We also have to remember that Kevin Durant has never had a 60-point game in his career. He's never done that. I think that he might have 1 or 2 in him, but that's just not how he plays. He's not a volume shooter.
Than James Harden. So even though
Joel Embiid is 4th in the league in scoring. Hey, didn't I say before the season if Joel averages about 27.5 points per game, somewhere around 13 rebounds per game, that he would be in the running for the MVP? Right now, I think that Joel would probably finish in the top 5 in MVP voting. I think that it's going to end up being James Harden, Giannis. Number 3 might be Paul George, even though I think that he's fallen out of it a bit. So number 3 might be the kid out there, Jokic in Denver. Maybe Steph Curry and then Joel Embiid.
James Harden has the numbers, he also has the volume. But when I'm talking about unstoppable, I'm thinking efficiency. I'm saying, what if Kevin Durant shot the ball as much as James Harden? What if Kevin Durant wanted to utilize his green light as much as James Harden does? What would he do? No different, possibly even better, because he's clearly more efficient. When you look at the fact that he's 6'10", with a 7'6" wingspan, with a handle, with a 3, with a mid-range game.
Can pull up from 30.
Just as effective from 3-point range, more effective from the field, just as effective from the free throw line, and by the way, about 6 inches taller, with a wingspan.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned that before.
And that's about 9 inches longer. I'm sorry. When you talk about unstoppable, the only thing that stops Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. And the fact that he is willing to be a bit more judicious in his sharing. But in terms of efficiency and effectiveness, in terms of being able to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it, on the offensive side of the ball, there is no question this Kevin Durant.
Well, I would say that KD is the most proficient offensive scorer in the NBA, and I've stated this before. In the last 30 years, the only player more proficient than KD offensively was Michael Jordan. It's Michael Jordan and it's KD in the last 30 years. When you're talking about players who are going to average anywhere from 28 to 30-plus points per game and shoot in that high 40s to low 50s percentile from the field, it's those two players, or at least from the perimeter.
And then there's everybody else.
There is a question, and in fact, there's an answer. Kevin Durant's a better player than James Harden because, as you mentioned, he's taller and all that, and he does a lot of great things on offense, but he's also an elite defender and a versatile defender, and he's always playing basketball the right way. And I hate being on this side of the Kevin Durant argument. It seems like every time I open my mouth, it sounds like I'm taking a shot at him. I want to be very clear. One of the best players I've ever seen. But if you want to talk about unstoppable offense, there are certain things you can do with Durant. You can deny him the ball. He's not the primary ball handler. And if Durant did everything you suggest, could he do it in a winning effort? James Harden is a real...
Those are great points. I have to give you credit, Max Kellerman. Those are great points. It's very difficult for a player to be a volume shooter and also lead his team to victories, and James Harden can do that.
Real team player. Clearly Kevin Durant is, but so is Harden. When he is called upon to carry...
I will say this, though. In the one season where KD won the MVP, I believe that he averaged over 30 points per game. I would not call him a volume shooter per se because he shot over 50%, but his team was winning.
Carry the offensive load, his usage rate is so insanely high, and yet his percentages don't suffer. Like, could Kevin Durant have the same usage rate and do everything that Harden does and still be that for a 55-60 win team? Maybe, but we haven't seen it. But we are seeing it with James Harden. You can't deny him the ball. He has the ball. He's the primary ball handler. And he's still...
Well, you can try to deny him off the inbounds. Marcus Smart does a relatively good job of that. And you can pressure him up the floor, which very few teams try to do to him in the regular season.
Still gives you 57 points. And yes, they lost last night. Again, third game in 4 nights, second of back-to-back, all on the road. You lose by a point. Okay, you understand that. But he's dropping these 40 and 50-point games with all those assists and rebounds and playing underrated defense for a winning team. I mean, it's insane what he's doing. In terms of unstoppable offense, not who's the better player, unstoppable offense, it's James Harden.
I'd say I would agree with you, Max Kellerman. I say that he's the most unstoppable player in the NBA right now when it comes to explosiveness. But if we're talking about which player could get us the most proficient 30 points, it'd be KD. But I understand where both of you are coming from. James Harden right now, he's just having an incredible offensive season.
You're wrong, but I already stated my case.
All right, the 76...
But anyway, that's basically it on that. I just found this conversation very interesting. Embiid is trying to throw his name into the hat as being the most unstoppable player in the league. And he has the right to make that claim. It's not true, at least not for this season. But who knows? In 2 years, he might be that player. He might just be the most overall best player in the league in 2 years, which would say a lot, seeing as right now the NBA is in a perimeter-oriented time period, and he's a center. So peace.